Welcome back to the Conquest of Happiness. I am your host, as always, Sarah McKelvey, director here at Center for Higher Consciousness. And I've been involved in creating and putting forth videos on this series for a year. I had no idea it would take this long. I've learned a lot in the process. Hopefully other series will be more compressed than this one has turned out to be, but it's been quite a journey. I was a little bit bittersweet preparing this morning for the last 3 videos, the teaching notes associated with the last 3 videos, as this has been a very involved journey, and I've kind of become endeared to teaching the Conquest of Happiness. Anyway, in today's lecture on video, we're going to be covering what I am calling constructive work and impersonal interests, just a slight play on the original titles found in chapters 14 and 15. I'm going to compress this teaching into one lesson because I think they're very related. So remembering the premise that began this section 2, Causes of Happiness, as being a recommendation that Bertrand makes that we should take a friendly interest in people and things rather than a hostile attitude. This is the things portion of that equation. So we covered in affection and the family, the last video, taking a friendly interest in people. And now we're going to turn our attention to work and hobbies, basically. What Bertrand Russell means by impersonal interests is the fact that we take up an interest in the things of this world beyond personal or egoic motives. So impersonal interests, we could take up an interest in stamp collecting, in dancing or fashion, in film, in tech, in so many things. And he's more interested in taking these things up in what he's calling an impersonal way, which means that you are interested in the substance of the thing and the larger tradition of which you are taking a part, rather than being so personally associated with the thing. So when we say work, we mean paid work. That's the bulk of what most of us do. But work can be anything that is a process of achieving results, trying to make changes in the material world, in our learning. The change can be to our own neural structure in that process of learning. Work just means, in that basic sense, effort that generally achieves some kind of result. So this is an important domain, right, to consider regarding happiness. Jonathan Haidt, in his happiness formula, established having and pursuing the right goals in order to create states of flow and engagement is a contributor to happiness, a primary contributor to happiness. It's another quote is that people and many other mammals have a basic drive to make things happen. Psychologists refer to this basic need as a need for competence, industry, or mastery. Also in Jonathan Haidt's book, he quotes a Harvard psychologist by the name of Robert White, who says, dealing with our environment means carrying on a continuing transaction which gradually changes one's relation to the environment. Because there is no sort of climax to this process, Robert White suggests that we should derive satisfaction in the considerable series of transactions we make, or the process, in a trend of behavior rather than any particular goal that might be achieved. So even though we often think of work in negative terms and glorify financial freedom and retirement as desirable contrasts, work is the essence of life, even if it is pursued, for more recreational purposes or spiritual purposes. For example, We still are working on something or another. Sadly, in a Harris poll survey of American happiness, close to 40% of Americans, almost half of Americans, said in 2017 that they rarely engage in hobbies or pastimes they enjoy. Bertrand Russell is saying we should be involved in enjoyable work, largely and for the most part. Again, that doesn't mean in the strict sense of paid work by any means. We need to feel fulfilled. We need to be working toward something or a set of some things and make reasonable progress toward our goals. Bertrand Russell advocates for a kind of leisure that is sufficiently vigorous, employs our strengths, makes use of and develops our talents and abilities. That is work that would otherwise, if not done, these talents, abilities, and skills would remain latent and undeveloped in us. Why engage in work as contrasted to maybe we might say idleness or passively passing the time, mindlessly consuming media or whatnot, consuming this YouTube channel mindlessly. Why? It structures our days. It creates structure in time. It appoints ourselves to engage in meaningful activities. And when we're involved in meaningful activities, we have greater potential for satisfaction. Again, in contrast to checking out or indulging in some outlet that gives us momentary relief, for example. Work, we might see it as an outlet for self-actualization. It enlarges our skill sets, it develops practices, it refines our know-how, such that we may achieve a level of mastery, which is really rewarding to be at a level of mastery from starting out as a novice. We can, Haidt says, relate to work through a job, a career, or a calling. That's probably in a hierarchy of meaningfulness. Work is creative and constructive and provides the opportunity to collaborate and contribute, some of the most rewarding aspects of being alive. Some side benefits are what we might call proportion and perspective. When we engage ourselves in meaningful activity at an impersonal level or transpersonal level beyond mere personal interest, we encounter what he says to be an enlargement of the mind and heart. When we take an impartial survey of the world, it can connect us to something beyond ourselves. And it can connect our modest but meaningful efforts to legions of people and larger traditions, of which you are a very small but important part of, which can help with feelings of loneliness and isolation. That we are, it can foster a sense of deep belonging. Also, being involved largely and for the most part in constructive work and goals is a protective factor against succumbing to routine anxieties and ruminations and dwelling on the various things that crop up in business, family, health, marriage. It's just a preventative factor from dwelling unproductively on aspects of our life that don't need to be dwelled in. So the suggestion is that you should build on what you already have or have started. You're not starting from scratch. If you're watching this video, you already know something about yourself and you've already probably tinkered with a few traditions, if not developed some kind of skill, whether that's a martial art or gardening or pursuing some kind of a social cause that means something to you, and to continue that effort. If one has an engagement across a whole lifetime, it's very rewarding to have a continuity of purpose and to have deeply involved ourselves in something, in a tradition. Psychologists Ken Sheldon and Tim Kasser in 1995 found that people are mentally healthy and happy who have what they call a high degree of vertical coherence between higher level long-term goals and lower level immediate goals. So people who, say on a day-to-day basis, do things that contribute to a larger project are more satisfied, healthier, and happier. Aristotle, as Haidt mentions, was interested in inquiring into, these are Latin terms, arete and telos, or excellence and virtue and purpose and goal orientation. And he used the metaphor that people are like archers, which I really like. We need a clear target at which to aim. Without a target or a goal, one is left in what he named as the animal default. Love this image. Like an elephant that grazes or roams where it pleases. So without involving ourselves in meaningful work across time, that helps us with continuity and coherence in our life project, we are prone to aimlessness and drifting and perhaps other things like depression because our life has failed a certain criteria of meaning. Lastly, Bertrand's going to remind us, as he does from time to time, again highlighting the difference between egoic motives and motives that are transpersonal or more rooted in what the Jungians call self, capital S, self, something larger than our ego motives. He says, do you produce because you feel an urgent compulsion to express certain ideas or feelings, or are you actuated by the desire for applause? In the genuine artist or creator or worker in the sense we're using it, the desire for applause, although it usually exists, is secondary. And that not only produces better work, by the way, it is linked to living a happier life, which I find that leap to be less intuitive. So I am so glad on a personal level that we got a chance to highlight the benefits and the rich enjoyments of living a life full of projects and meaningful pursuits and setting up lots of goals for ourselves and involving ourselves with lots of interests and traditions to promote a happy life. Stay tuned for our next lecture on video, which concerns a topic called effort and resignation.